So this is video number 2, second part. And if you've watched the first one, which I'm going to assume that you have, I'm going to also remind you to, and I'm going to say this repeatedly, that repetition is really important. Okay? If you're scrolling through Instagram and you're looking at cat videos and that kind of stuff, doesn't really matter. If you actually want to learn something, you want to actually have some new understanding and be able to do new and exciting things, then there's some learning involved, and learning happens when there's some repetition. You don't learn very much first time you read a book, right? It's when you read it the second time, the third time, fourth time, especially if it's in, my preference is audiobooks. That's why with U Squared, probably 100 times I've listened to that book. Okay, the first 5-10 times you're starting to get the hang of it, right? You're starting to actually learn. It's like a song. First time you hear a song, you're not singing it, you don't know the words. Once you've heard it 5, 10, 15, 20 times, it starts to stick in your head. You know the words, you're singing along. You're singing it when you're not even paying attention. You wake up in the middle of the night, it's playing in your head. Right? That's when you know it. That's when you've absorbed it. So watching something once or twice, right? It's not really going to change anything. Repetition, wax on, wax off. So I would suggest that you not only watch these videos multiple times, you be listening to U Squared multiple times, and things related to quantum leaps, whatever you can find, whatever else is out there, because you're not going to have a quantum leap if you're just doing same old, right? A little bit of attention here, a little bit of attention there. You're not changing anything. Okay, so repetition. So this video, we actually start getting into some of the nitty-gritty, some of the actual action items. Okay, so we talked about quantum leaps as a bit of an overview in the previous one. This one is the first phase. I call it the pre-launch. Okay, there's a pre-launch phase, there's a launch phase, there's a liftoff phase, and there's a landing phase. So this is the pre-launch. This is kind of like you're getting stuff ready. So you might think about in terms of, when you're getting up and you're going out somewhere, you're going to work, or you're going to school, or you're going shopping. The pre-launch phase is kind of like you're getting up, you're getting out of bed, and you're doing those basic things, right? Just maybe having a shower, getting dressed, okay? Just really basic kind of stuff, but it's important stuff, right? You can't not do it. You have to do it. And it's routine for you now. Now, when you have kids and you realize it takes a while for them to develop this as a routine, it's because it's something that they're learning. Right? Kids take a while to learn how to brush their teeth. They take a little while to learn how to get themselves dressed. It takes them a little while to learn how to prepare their breakfast. So it's routine for us now. And once things are routine, right, it's a different consideration. But some of the things that you're going to need to do, and hopefully you're already doing some of them. So when I talk about these kind of basic things, you can boil it all down to just getting yourself to a point where you are able to be present in the now moment, right? You could say that, meditation is a really good way to train yourself to get present, because if you're not present, then you have no power, and then it's going to be a lot of work and a lot of struggle and a lot of effort. Drama, struggle, effort, that kind of stuff. Sound familiar? When you start getting more present, you start to up level in your ability to create and in your ability to identify what is in your well-being and what really is not, and what doesn't really have anything to do with you. So this first part is really about recalibrating, so you're less scattered and less kind of all over the place. Right? People have a tendency to rush. People have a tendency to react. So it's going to be starting to reel that stuff in. And so a couple of the really simple, very basic, but very useful and powerful and foundational, because these are things you're going to build on, are things like breathing, breath work. Simple stuff. You don't really have to like take an hour out of your day to do things like this. It's stuff you can even do throughout your day. There's no reason why you can't be conscious of your breath while you're walking up and down the stairs, and while you're washing dishes, and while you're getting dinner ready, and while you're driving your car. There's no reason why you can't. We just don't, right? It's check what's on my phone, put on some music, message somebody, talk to somebody, right? Constantly just being in motion in the mind, in the brain, right? In motion. So we're going to kind of dial that down, dial it back, and bring it into present. That's where you have the infinite possibility. That's where the alchemy is. It's the alchemy. That's where it is. Otherwise, you're kind of like a dog, right? You're just kind of going from here to there, reacting to this, reacting to that, running around kind of in circles on some level, right? Not that much different than a dog. And so breathing is one thing, being more conscious of the breath, more routine breathing for extended periods of time. You know, like taking a breath here and there is great, right? Taking 10 or 20 conscious breaths is better, a lot better. You're going to think about being conscious about hydrating well, and when you're breathing, you're not just breathing, you're oxygenating, you're empowering. And also, I would strongly suggest you be doing some writing. Writing's really powerful. Writing causes you to get focused more so than we generally are. It's a more conscious thing because it's creative. So it's not just getting in the car and turning on the car and driving, because you have to focus for that too, but it's a different kind of focus. You can kind of do that without being fully present because it's familiar, right? You've developed that ability and it's kind of automatic. So when you start doing some writing, you're engaging the physical with the mental and the emotional, and you're creating a record. When you're writing, you're recording your thoughts, intentions, and ideas. And when you create a record, you tend to be a lot more deliberate and a lot more careful in your choice of words. See, most people, when they're talking, they're just blurting and they're reacting, and there's no record, there's no accountability in talking or thinking, right? So people's thoughts and their words can be all over the place. It doesn't really matter. Right? People don't really value their words very much in general because there's no real record of it. It's just out there. When you start to record, you start to make a record. You become a lot more focused, a lot more clear, a lot more intentional. There's a lot more alignment. There's attunement. There's entrainment. Right now, you're starting to marshal energetically in a significant way. You're marshaling your energies, your mental energies, your emotional energies, your physical energies, and these have different densities. So think about it kind of like a symphony where you have like a bass and you have the tenor, you have the soprano, the different instruments. different frequency and vibration, starting to play in unison, starting to play in harmony, right? Like a harmonics. So it's not just noise anymore. You don't have your different energies, your mental and emotional and physical, all sort of scrambled and just making noise. You can also think about it just like a guitar. Doesn't matter who plays a guitar that's out of tune. It's never going to sound good. So when you start to focus and you start to attune yourself, you start to attune yourself energetically, you start to get coherent in your messaging, in your broadcast. Right? What you're starting to project is coherent. When you start to get coherent, and you start to get alignment, and you start to get harmony in your field, then you start to get really empowered. Right? And there's no limit to how empowered and how extensive you can go on this track. So, and again, this is just pre-launch stuff. This is basic stuff. So for me personally, I would just, and I started doing this more than 15 years ago, was just writing, getting up in the morning, just doing some writing, just getting out, whatever thoughts and ideas you had that were sort of priorities, sort of intentions, things that you had a preference for, right? Things you like, right? Just writing about things you like, things you would like, things that would be nice. Very general. Doesn't have to be, big, grand, precise, specific. Just what do you like? How do you like to live? What do you enjoy? How do you want to experience yourself? Right? How do you want to live? In very general terms, right? So, and because if you do that, you start to realize you're not going to be writing things like, well, I like having arguments, and I like having dramas, and I like having struggles, and I like, not getting along with you. You're not going to write that stuff, right? But that's what people experience a lot of time. And it's because they're not focusing in any different direction. So unless, in the absence of shifting your focus and aligning yourself and lining yourself up in a different direction, you're just going to keep falling back into what you've always been doing. So if it's argument and drama and struggle, right? Oh, it's them, it's because they're crazy, it's because, it's whatever. It's, why are you in that? Right? Why are you in that? Oh, because they know, it's just because you're just not lined up in a coherent alignment. You don't have the focus. You don't have the coherence. You're not broadcasting what it is that you really like and what you really prefer, right? So when you start writing things like, I enjoy having meaningful interaction with the people in my life. Okay, you start writing things like that. And you go on and on and on and on. Examples like that. You keep going. You can say the same thing in different ways. But what you're doing is you're lining yourself up energetically with those kinds of things. Right? I enjoy a work environment where people are helpful and supportive, and where there's mutual respect, and where people value each other. Like, you can go on and on and on and on and on about every aspect of your life. What do you like? Would you like to live? Right? Very basic stuff. But it's really, really powerful. And people don't do it. It's easier to pick up your phone, scroll through whatever feed, and watch a YouTube video, and whatever, right? Chit chat, right? Go back and forth with someone. So, breathing, doing some meditation, being able to get still, right? Starting to dial yourself down from that pace of being in motion all the time. Being able to get still, being able to get focused, being able to shift your focus onto things that you prefer, how you would like to experience yourself. Notice a little bit of repetition here. right? That's intentional, right? We're speaking deeply into your cellular structure, right? We want to embed these concepts so that when you go to do those old unconscious things, you're going to start to get this impulse to maybe do something a little bit different. Because at the end of the day, when you start shifting, you start with a little bit of change here and there, a little bit of change here and there. Moving yourself a little bit out of your comfort zone from time to time with some regularity. And then more and more so and more so. Then it allows for everything to change. So if there's a big change that you'd like to make in your life, a little bit of change here, doing something a little bit outside of your comfort zone on a routine basis, and then maybe adding something else on a routine basis. Changing your routine a little bit where you have to experience a little bit of discomfort. For me, as an example, when I was writing, so the last time I really pulled off a big quantum leap, it kind of got going in 2019. It had started, so it was pre-COVID. It had kind of started. And one of the things that I did was, not only was I writing, but I started writing with my left hand. So I'd pick up the pen, and then I'd be like, oh yeah, I got to use my left hand. So I'd have to switch it over to my left hand. And just that little bit of discomfort, right? That's that unfamiliarity, and then writing with my left hand. So little things like that, little things that are a bit of a shakeup in your routine. They're not huge, but they're significant. Okay, and then these kinds of things, you start to do them. It has to be not just, one day yes and one day no, one day yes and one day no. It's okay at the beginning, but you really want it to be kind of a regular thing. You can pick up your book and write 2 or 3 times in a day. It doesn't have to be a long session. It can be 10 minutes here and there, right? You're at work and you have a break. You don't, instead of maybe just going for a walk and a smoke and a coffee, find yourself a spot where you can just sit down for 10 minutes and just write a few things. It doesn't take long. You start to get really adept at bringing yourself into present time and lining yourself up energetically, getting yourself focused. And that's the goal, is to making it an automatic, familiar process. At first, it's a bit uncomfortable. That's fine. That's like everything else, right? Something new is always a little uncomfortable. And that's really all you need to do in this pre-launch phase, is just start doing that. Because what's going to happen is, as you write, you're going to start to expand. You're going to see your creativity start to really blossom, and you're going to start to be expanding your imagination. Because when you're breathing, right, that's the respiration. And with the respiration comes inspiration. With inspiration, there's imagination, right? There's your creativity. And then it doesn't take long before you get manifestation. It really doesn't. So, writing about what you like every day, even if you're writing about the same kinds of things, just saying them in different ways, saying them over and over again. Again, repetition's fine. If it's like, oh, I wrote about this yesterday, who cares? If that's what you're thinking about, write about it again today. It might go off in a different direction. Something else might come to mind that gets included. You might get inspired to contemplate something else that wasn't really going to enter into this framework until you had spent a little bit of time writing about the things you wrote about in the last few days. So you can't do it wrong, but you want to start to generate a flow. This is what's really critical, is generating a flow where you're writing, and as you're writing, you're getting more ideas, you're getting more inspiration, more things are coming to you, and you're writing, and it's this flow. You're opening up this flow. This is really important for the next phase. The next phase is where things really start to get moving. But it's a bit of a wax on, wax off type of process, right? You need to spend time doing these basic things, just getting really familiar and comfortable with them. Once you're familiar and comfortable with them, you'll be able to have this flow, and then you can start to take that to higher and higher levels. Okay, so for the pre-launch phase, this is really about it. The launch phase is going to be the next video. We'll probably circle back a little bit, but then we start introducing more power tools. Like these are basic power tools, just the breathing and the writing. Those are kind of basic power tools. We're going to start to build on those and add in some other ones in the next session. Okay, so remember, repetition, repetition, repetition. If you need to, set timers on your phone to remind you to do things like breathing, writing, whatever it is. Set a whole bunch of timers, set a whole bunch of alarms on your phone to remind you to do these things. I mean, listen, if everything in your life is fantastic, you don't need to do any of this, but then you're probably not watching this. But remember, quantum leap means you're going to start to have an acceleration, right? You're going to go from same old to a little different, then all of a sudden kind of a big move, and then a bigger move, and then a big move, and then that all is going to kind of come together and result in what you're going to look back on as one really big move into a very different reality, designed and architected by you. So that's what we're starting to get into now. Okay, see you in the next one.